You're listening to the See the Unseen podcast, where our number one focus is creating a little visibility for people who deserve a whole lot of spotlight. I'm your host, Melissa Georgioff, and I'm here to share some amazing stories that can transform and inspire lives. So get ready to take those blinders off and see the unseen.
What if your greatest impact was how you made people feel? This morning, I want to talk a little bit about the legacy we leave behind when we're gone. So, quick story. I don't know how quick this is. I'm saying it's a quick story. This morning, I was listening to TikTok and I heard a guy playing Randy Travis, The Three Wooden Crosses. And I told Andy, oh, I love this song. And he sounded so good. And I thought, I wonder how Randy Travis is doing. And so it just made me think about all those things. And I asked Alexa to play the Three Wooden Crosses song. And so I was listening to that. And then I started to pray and said my prayers and then started out for a walk today. And as I was walking, I hit the end of the driveway and I just said another prayer. It's like, God, please give me the clarity of who the people are that I'm supposed to help. You know, who are the people that God places in your heart and in your life that you're supposed to help? And please give me just real clarity on it because, you know, I really struggle with this a lot every day is because I'm always thinking about who am I supposed to help? What is my purpose? And I'm always talking to people about, you know, helping them find their purpose or their spiritual gifts that they're given. And for me, I always think, am I supposed to help women in business, help people who are going through a difficult time, get unstuck and live the life that they love? And so I was really praying this morning saying, you know, who are the people that I'm supposed to help? Please give me clarity on it because it's not about, you know, I keep thinking about building courses and helping people, but it's not about really building courses. It's about people who, you know, when they need help or they need hope, they're stuck and they don't need to go through this elaborate course. They need somebody who cares about them that wants to hear them. So anyway, I was moving along, started walking down my driveway. And for a lot of you who live locally here, you probably know that I live on the corner of a place that had a bad tragedy a few years ago. And that was Missy Kafaza, who I went to high school with. Her and her husband and her little boy, her 12-year-old, I believe he was 12 years old, son, were all in a car accident right outside my home. And they all three passed away. And I went to school with Missy. I remember her. She was a cheerleader with me in high school, and she was just full of life. You know, anybody that saw Missy, she was always smiling. She just had a lot of energy. Her and her mom looked like twins. Her mom, it was just really beautiful too. And anyway, they were a picture perfect family. You know, her husband was a good looking guy, the little boy, real cute kid. Like they had everything going for them in life, and they lived down the street from me. And anyway, one afternoon that all ended. They're all three of their lives ended. And when I walked out, you know, I remember this. Of course, it's like always on my mind here and there because I live right outside where it happened. But, you know, of course, there are times when it's not always top of mind. You know, this was years ago. And when I walked out, I noticed the three crosses. And then I thought, three wooden crosses. Like, how weird. I just listened to this song and I'm looking at the three wooden crosses. And so I went over there, and people leave different things there. They leave, you know, angels and they said hope and peace, I think. And they come and decorate the three wooden crosses. And I just sat over there and looked at that, and just, it's hard to believe that she's gone and that, you know, that her family's gone and all the people and she left boys that just adored her. She was a boy mom. And I just think about, you know, how tragic it is, because I'm sure when they woke up that morning, they had no idea that that was going to be the last day of their life. And so it just started making me think about legacy and what are we leaving this world? And anyway, as I kept walking, I kept thinking about this, and I played that song again, and I thought about the lyrics. And it says, there was a farmer, a teacher, a preacher, and a hooker, and and why there's not four crosses, only heaven knows. And so I was thinking about the lyrics because I'm a country music fan, so I also love always hearing the lyrics. So I was thinking to myself, okay, who was it that died? Was it the preacher? I couldn't remember. And so I looked up the lyrics, and it was the preacher who left his bloodstained Bible in that hooker's hand, and how the hooker basically grew up to give the Bible to her son, who became a pastor. And so this is like how deep I was going in, of just like thinking about, what do we leave behind? And who am I supposed to help? And as I kept walking, I saw a guy on the side of the road, and he's on this little motorcycle, and he's looking in this field, and I'm thinking, what is he looking for? But I felt like I needed to talk to him. And so I went over there, and I'm like, what are you looking for? And he said, I'm looking for seeds. And I said, seeds? And he said, yeah, I'm planting corn. And I go over there and talk to this man. And the only reason I don't want to go into the whole details of the story, but it was 100% a God moment. And I said, he said he was a farmer. And I thought, this is so weird. Like, I was just thinking about, there was a farmer. And I kept talking to him. And anyway, I don't want to share too many details because it was just something he was struggling with. And I said, I was able to just have a gospel conversation with him, and tell him about the plan of salvation, and how there is hope for people and that are going through difficult times. And, he had gone through really difficult times in his life, and so have I. And so I just had that moment with him, and I was able to pray with him and just to let him know that God has a plan for his life, and that, if he would just give his heart to God and to ask for forgiveness and ask Jesus to come in his life, that there is hope, that, that he'll eventually go to heaven, and that, to ask God for what he needs. And anyway, I don't want to go into all of it, but it was like one of the most precious conversations I've ever had with anyone. And so, anyway, that really got me thinking about legacy and purpose. So I want to talk a little bit about, people want to know, what is my purpose? What are my spiritual gifts? How can I help other people? And do we really think about like how we make people feel each and every day? Because it's as simple as that too. I think about a woman that I've had some conversations with at my dental office, and she's thinking, what are my spiritual gifts? What is my purpose? And I think about how she made me feel at the dentist, just how she, just calmed me. And we think that we have to make such a big impact. Like I tell Andy last night, we literally had probably a 3-hour conversation about, how do I reach more people in my podcast? It's not or how do I help more people, but it's really about helping the people that God places in our lives, and how do we help them with the best of what we have to offer? And I think about, I was talking with her, and I was like, you have so much to offer, and, how it's like, what can you do each and every day? She has somebody sitting in the dental, seat. How can you, because what she wanted to do was tell others about Christ. So it's like, how can you do that every day in all the conversations that you have? There's all kinds of opportunities. And, how are we making people feel? I think about, she's a beautiful, like so pretty lady. And I thought about that when I was sitting in the chair. And, sometimes we can keep things to ourselves, like we think it, but we don't share it. And so I just, told her, I was like, you know how pretty you are? Like, she has pretty skin, she has pretty hair, she's got beautiful teeth that are perfect. But what was more important is she's really beautiful on the inside, and her personality is just so sweet and calming. And, I could have kept that to myself and just never said anything. But because I said something to her, I think it kind of made her day. And then that helped her to like just have a little more confidence and felt better, throughout the day. And then, and so the reason I'm telling you the story is just like, what are the little things that we can do every day to help people feel better, to, tell them about God's love for them? And then, like, what is the legacy that we're leaving when we are gone from this earth? So I'm going to talk about another topic here, is when we are no longer here, how do we want people to remember us? I think about someone who told me one day, you're working all the time, you're working your life away, basically. And, what are they going to write on your tombstone when you die? Like, that you worked all the time, that you weren't, maybe you missed out on things in your kid's life. And it really ticked me off that day. I remember thinking, no, what I want them to write on my tombstone was that I helped people with disabilities. Like, I hope that that's what they remember about me. But it's not even that. Like, I think about how much, I am kind of a workaholic. I do work all the time. And so, when you work so hard and you eventually get kind of burned out, I do think about that, is what do you want? How do I want to be remembered? And that's part of why I started this podcast, was because, we get so busy, we get so tied up. We always think we're going to create these memories. We're going to do this, we're going to do that. But I think about my grandbaby, Shane. I wanted him to remember his grandma. Like, I want him to be like, not wait till I'm 90 years old, but say, you know what? I had a really cool grandma. And he calls me Grammar, by the way, which I think is the cutest thing ever. But I want him to not remember me as an old grandma. I want him, maybe he'll come back on YouTube and he'll see, you know what? My Grammar had a podcast and she was pretty cool. That was one of the little reasons why I wanted to start a podcast for a lot of different reasons: to bring visibility to people with disabilities, to help women in business. I love the singer-songwriter stories behind the songs. And then I wanted to share my faith. And I believe I'm doing all those things on this podcast. And if it helps people, and I want to take what I know, and if it's something I've learned along the way, then I want to share it with someone else if it makes their life a little bit easier. And so that's what I really been trying to focus on, is how do I help the people that God has placed in my life? And I want you to think about that too, is, what are you doing to help the people that God places in your life? Again, I don't necessarily have to help thousands of people or go viral or have millions of views or anything like that. It's about, who am I helping that God's placing in my life? So I do hope I helped the guy that I met today. I prayed for him. I asked if I could pray for him. And it was just a really cool moment. And I hope that what I said gave him hope for the future. Because I think we all just need hope, hope that there's something better. When we're going through a difficult time, I've been through so many terrible moments in my life. And it was God that got me out of it. He asked me, he's like, how could I told him, I said, I've been through multiple marriages, failed marriages. Many of them cheated on me. And he's like, why would they cheat on a beautiful woman like you? And he was real sweet about it. I was like, well, first of all, number one, I will say that I have my part in a lot of things. I was a workaholic. And also because, if you've been cheated on, you have a lot of insecurities that come up. And so, it's like, I probably was hateful about a lot of things, like, I want to see your phone. I don't trust men, things like that. So I don't know, I'm kind of going down a rabbit hole here, but, I really say that because everybody's gone through a difficult time in their life and they needed hope. And thank God that God was there for me when I was in a lot of those bad relationships and gone through a tough time in life, or when I lost my mom, or, and I want you to think about too, who are the people that were there for you, because sometimes I think my best friend Denise was always there for me, and God love her. She has heard me be in the worst place ever and cry a million cries. And always just been there to listen and encourage me. And I think about my daughter, Kaylee, who has been there for me. I think about a lady that's a coach, Laura, who when I was still just about a year and a half ago, I was kind of just down in the dumps and thinking, what's my purpose in life? And she just got me thinking about, what do I really want out of life? And, I want to move to town, and she got me dreaming again. And so that's why I got passionate about coaching and sharing what I know, because I want to help people know that they can get out of a bad situation, or when you feel like there's no hope, that there is hope. But I would encourage you, who's been there for you when you felt like nobody was there for you? How did they make you feel? And I think about, sometimes nobody's there for you. Like, literally, I get sick of my own crap. Like, and I think my best friend's got to be sick of hearing me too. But like, good thing God never gave up on me either. Like, my best friend didn't give up on me, my daughter, all these people, friends, family. But, there's times when, I just feel like, thank God that I could pray about it and ask God to pull me out of that bad spot in life. And he always has. So I just hope that you're encouraged by, what I'm saying. I would encourage you to think about, what will you leave behind today? How are you showing up? How do you want to be remembered? How do you want people to feel when they leave you? I remember my coach Tavo, he told me the first day I met him, he said, this was my first coaching experience. He said, Melissa, how do you want people to feel when you leave them? And I said, well, that I love them, like my team is what he was talking about. And I said, well, that I care about them, that I love them, that I want them to be successful, that I appreciate what they do. And he said, is that how you think they feel? And I was like, whoa, no. And so I was tough on my people. I was a tough leader. I was, I had tough bosses, and it was just trickling right on downhill. And it helped me to turn that around, to show up and be a different leader to my team. And was I perfect? No, but I had to work really hard to get better. And I'm still not perfect at it, but I try and remember, how do I want people to feel when I leave them? And again, some days, not so great at it. And other days, maybe I'm doing an okay job. So I just share this with you because I want you to really think about, I listened to a podcast this morning, and he talked about what he called QTR, quality time, what is it saying? What was it? Quality time. I don't know. It wasn't quality. Hold on one. Okay. I remember now. It was quality time remaining. And he talked about, I'm 54 years old. He was 54 years old. And he's talking about, we always think we have all this time to do something, but it's about QTR, quality time remaining. And what he does, and he's like, somebody's going to share this on their podcast and steal it. And I'm like, I guess I am kind of stealing this. And he said, go ahead and steal it. I think I kind of think of it as quality time memories, because we always think we have all this time. We don't know when our last day is on this earth. Only God knows that. But what are we doing with the days that we have left? How are we showing up for people? And I think about, the quality time remaining. What he does is, all his friends, he was talking about how he had all this money and he's worked really hard in his career, but he's not enjoying his life, really. He's not been out on the golf course that he wanted to go to, or out on the beach where he wanted to stay for a few days and decompress. And all his friends are doing that. But what they do with each other is they send a picture of each other when they're doing a moment like that. And it could be like just spending time with your grandchild, or it could be, playing with your kid, or, maybe me speaking to that guy today, like taking a picture and then sending it to his friend group saying, QTR, quality time remaining, as a reminder that we're only here on this earth for a short time. And how are we showing up? How do you want people to remember you? What do you want God to say about you? If God could look at your life today, what would he say? Would he look at you and say, good job. You went out and you spread the word and the gospel and told people that there's hope and that, God loves them? Or did you just worry about yourself? These are all questions that I think about, but the legacy that we leave isn't something that we build at the end. The legacy that we leave, it's in every interaction, it's in every word, and it's in every moment. I hope that you appreciated this podcast, and I hope that you find someone that you could speak to today and, fill them up a little bit with love, lead them with your heart. And I would just say, keep telling and encouraging them that there's a different story out there. There's the story of how God should be showing up in our life and how he delivers us peace and love in all kinds of moments. And I would just encourage you to, give someone else hope that needs to hear it today. And thank you for listening to my podcast. Have a great day. If you enjoyed this episode of the See the Unseen podcast, please share it with someone else and pay it forward. I encourage you also to leave a comment below as I try and read all of them. So hit the subscribe button if you'd like to receive notifications of new upcoming episodes. And if no one's told you today, you are seen, you are heard, and you are loved. Thank you so much for allowing me to share my podcast with you, and I look forward to connecting with you on the next episode.